Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Gussy Hydleman is the co-founder of All Together, an organisation that connects small business owners with industry leaders who can provide them with advice and guidance. It's fair to say they've built up a very impressive network. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Gussy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, you're the co-founder of All Together, which we'll explore in a minute, but I wanted to have a little dig into your background first, Gussy. So what has your career path been and what did you want to be when you were at school?
So at school, was always quite clear, I think. I wanted to be an actress or an actor. I did loads of drama at school, loads of acting, loved books and plays. And when I was quite young, it all felt very, very easy. And then I went to senior school and it kind of tailed off a little bit. And I focused more on, sport and academics and other things. But I got back into it in a big way when I was at university and actually came out of university, went and did a master's in acting.
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to be me. I thought I was going to be an actor.
And so what happened? Why didn't you?
Yeah, that tailed off a bit. I didn't because I think it's the way the cards fell. COVID had quite a big impact on it. And I think, the less you know about something, the more you think you know. So before I went and trained in it, I kind of had this picture of what it might be like. I was going to go and do a master's and then you get an agent and then, everyone tells you eventually you get your big break.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I actually went to drama school and I did the hard stuff, I realized how much I didn't know.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, I felt that a year hadn't really been enough. I felt that I'd been kind of broken down and started to build back up and get those skills and become a bit more free again. Because when I was so young, I think I was good because I was so young and free.
Yeah.
I didn't have any of that adult baggage. And then I had a big break and tightened up a bit and got a bit more, I guess, nervous about what people were going to think, I guess. And I don't think 1 year in a master's was long enough to do that.
Yeah.
And I came out with all these insecurities about, I did actually come out with an agent and I did a few auditions, but in my head, I just kept going, I don't know if this life is for me. I value other things as much as I value what a career in acting could bring. I value time off work. I value a stable income, for example.
Yes.
So I did give it a go, but then COVID hit. And obviously acting, auditions, making film, TV, stage, whatever, it all shut down.
Yeah.
And I pivoted into business.
Yeah. So business wasn't something that you'd done before then. It came about because of the pandemic, really.
It did, yeah. I mean, I'm really connected with it. I guess it runs in the family. And I kind of grew up listening to my dad on business calls in the car and things. So I'd been around it. But no, it's never something I thought that I would do.
Yeah.
And then as soon as things opened up a bit in the pandemic, or actually just the year before the pandemic, to try and earn some money whilst I thought I was going to be an actor, I started working in small businesses doing, brand activations or working in their sales teams or whatever. And I guess that set me up with a one thing leads to another type of role, which ended where I am now.
Yeah. So what did you learn from working in those small businesses?
I learned almost everything. I went in naively. I went in thinking, a brand activation, the acting thing that feeds into this, be bubbly and smiley at the front. And then I actually learned the intricacies of business. I watched founders work. I watched the teams work together. I saw how difficult it was to take a business from A to B. I learned what I wasn't good at. I learned what I was good at, but most importantly, I learned what I wasn't good at, which was very significant. I actually made a few mistakes in my first job in business. And now, 5 years later, I look back on them and I go, oh yeah, I can kind of see what went wrong there on both sides.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot about culture in business and a lot about teams and people because I hadn't enjoyed my first experience of that. And that remains a real passion for me today in my organisation now.
Yeah. So the pandemic hit and what did you do?
Yeah. Well, last in, first out of my, first job in
Yeah.
business, and that was fine. I hadn't loved it. Um, and so I lost that job and I retreated home, moved out of London, went back home, which is in Devon. Um, and we kind of all settled in for um, lockdown, didn't we?
Mm.
And in the middle of lockdown, again, it was my dad. He was telling me about this organization he'd got involved with, which was set up to try and help small businesses through the pandemic.
Hmm.
But he said the founder is drowning in admin. There's so many businesses that are applying for help from people like him, who
Yeah.
the founder had all gathered together. And I said, give him my email. I'm doing nothing. And it
Yeah.
seems to fit the bill for me. I love a business with purpose. I love business. And I don't really like being tied down to one specific role. So
Mm.
the idea of kind of supporting lots of businesses was really interesting. And uh, I met the original founder. And within 2 days, I was working voluntarily through the rest of that lockdown
Yeah.
to support the founder of Altogether as we tried to, reach out to as many businesses as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does Altogether do?
The big question. So Altogether, and there's been a bit of an evolution here, but essentially we are here to shortcut the journey to scale
Mm.
for small business CEOs and founders. And I guess what that really means is we have collected this group of super impressive business people. So they've founded and sold big businesses, or they've advised loads of them, or they've run a business that everyone would know about now.
Hmm.
Um, and we gather those people together and strongly encourage, shall we say, and again, COVID was a big part of us being able to do that. We strongly encourage them to give back to the business community.
Mm.
And so for the business community of small businesses, what that manifests as, they can come to us and say, hey, I have this opportunity, or I have this challenge that I didn't expect. Is there somebody that can help me? And we'll say, yeah, you should meet Mr. A and have a conversation about what it is that's blocking you, or what you're unsure about, and form a really genuine relationship with somebody who has truly been there and done it before
Mm.
you.
Yeah.
And I guess the USP of Altogether is that there's no money changing hands at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
So founders can come to us and they know that they're meeting somebody that doesn't want anything from them.
Yeah.
So they can trust that advice, and they have this independent sounding board. They're not on their board, they're not a professional service trying to sell them something, they're not an investor or an advisor. They are just there because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And so who was it that you founded this with?
So my co-founder is a guy called Jamie Mitchell, who's got a much longer CV than I do. He was CEO at Innocent Drinks and Dalesford Organics,
Hmm.
and until recently was chair at Rare Restaurants, which includes Gaucho in London, for
Yeah.
example. And so on the kind of day one of the pandemic, Jamie, obviously being in hospitality at the time, thought this is going to affect
Yeah.
everyone like it
Yeah.
already has us. And overnight, he pulled together, a friend that did the website and 6 or 7 of his, best friends from his time in business, and said to everyone, let's come together and offer our support. Fast forward to now, 5 years later, we've got over 100 of these people, and we've supported over 500 businesses with great advice.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's something that took off very quickly then.
In that moment, it moved really quickly, yes. I think we had 30 applications overnight for advice
Hmm.
when we first launched. And given it's just Jamie and I, there was at the time absolutely zero budget behind it.
Mm.
We were really happy with that. And it was a very simple offering at the time. It was just apply and we'll connect you with someone that gets it.
Yeah.
If you look at where we are now, we have events, we have content, we do our own podcast, and we still offer this advice. We have mastermind groups, so small groups of CEOs who get together with one of our advisors over a period of time and get to know each other and their businesses and learn together. Yeah, there's been an evolution for sure
Yeah.
since I met Jamie.
Yeah. So tell me about the people that you help. What kind of, you say small business, but small business is quite a range, really. And
It is.
are they from any particular sector, do you find, or is it across the board?
So we support across the board. We consider ourselves sector agnostic.
Hmm.
That said, we've always worked with loads in consumer or FMCG, retail, tech, B2B, creative. We'll go anywhere.
Mm.
Um, and we used to have a restriction on the kind of businesses we'd support in terms of turnover, but now we really do support anyone and everyone,
Yeah.
as long as there's some kind of viable product there.
Yeah.
So they could be turning over 100K, or they could be turning over 10 million, or they might have multiple sites, or they might just have one site. They can be at any stage, as long as we think this person's not just kind of testing an idea out on us. They really have gone somewhere
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. And so, what kind of help do you provide for them?
We, at the first port of call, we provide great advice, and it's not professional servicey advice. It's not formal advice. It is
Hmm.
just 40 minutes up to a few hours with somebody that's been there and done it.
Yeah.
So let's take founder A as an example. They run a juice business. They might be turning over 1 million, and they'll say, "Hey, I've got a problem with one of my major grocers," for example. And we'd say, "Okay, we know a really great advisor who's been there before. Maybe they've even worked for that grocer,
Hmm.
and we're going to connect you to have a chat about this challenge and see if that advisor can steer you anywhere that feels useful,
Mm.
I guess." And if that conversation, it's a bit more long term, they might have a real spark together and they might carry on for a couple of hours, or it might be something really specific.
Hmm.
And they just spend 40 minutes together, and everybody hopefully leaves feeling like the page has been turned.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that there are sort of common problems or issues that people tend to come to you with?
That's a great question. Um, yes, and in a couple of different ways. So as we've all seen a lot over the last 5 years with COVID, and then crazy politics and all the stuff we've all gone through,
Hmm.
the questions and challenges do move with the macroeconomics or
Mm.
macro political times. So the very first applications we had, so many of them were about furlough. How does it
Yes.
work? Or rates. How on earth do I talk to my landlord about rates? Um, Fast forward to Brexity challenges, for example. Once everyone had negotiated whatever that messy situation was, we had lots of important export questions.
Yeah.
Um, I suspect we'll be getting some soon on tariffs and US
Yes.
export. But that said, there are general founder questions. I'm thinking about raising. How do I know who to trust or who to work with? Or I'm expanding my team. How do I keep my culture when we're growing so fast?
Mm.
It's things like that that are common to all founders.
Yeah. Yeah. So, who are the experts and how do you find them?
Largely it's word of mouth. Um, COVID was a great boost for us at the start because we had all these great people who weren't really doing much.
Yeah.
Most of them were plural board advisors at this time. So when, other than the odd phone call during lockdown, how's furlough going or whatever, they were sitting on their hands a bit, and we were able to say to lots of them, "Hey, come and do this great thing." Um, Fast forward a few years, we've not really let many of them go. We keep telling them it's a good thing to be doing, and pretty regularly, one or other of them will say, "Oh, I met this other person and I think they'd be great," or, "Oh, my friend is, they're transitioning away from full-time CEO role and they'd be good," and they introduce us, and we just love to meet anybody that thinks giving back is a good thing.
Yeah. So, who can be an expert? Do you have any criteria for them?
So our volunteer advisors, or our experts, are people that have really, really done it in business, and they don't have to be famous or have sold a unicorn, $1 billion business.
Mm.
They are people who've really, really been in the weeds. So they've advised small businesses, and they've got loads of experience on the board of different small businesses at different stages, or they've built their own business and sold it or left it, or maybe it even went bust, but they've got experience,
Hmm.
for example. Or they're plural CEOs, but they're all people that have really, really been there. That's the important thing.
Yeah. So, what kind of feedback do you get from the small businesses who access your services?
So, at the risk of being a bit dull here, we do keep track of our NPS score. So the key message for an NPS score is, would you recommend this to a friend?
Hmm.
And we score really highly on that. We score in the 90s, which is quite unusual. So those that are happy to give us feedback, which might be biased in itself, they are incredibly positive about what we're doing. And many of them, anecdotally will say, meeting that person was transformative for me,
Mm.
or just being able to offload for an hour to somebody that truly gets it.
Yeah.
I've never had that before, and it meant so much to me.
Yeah.
And sometimes our advisors, they'll refer connections on to a friend who might know a bit more, or they might say, oh, send me some product, and then they'll have a chat with so and so. And it's not specifically what we do, but these connections, when they really fizz, are, yeah, transformative for small businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned that there's no cost at all for the small businesses, though.
So for the first 5 years of our existence,
Mm.
so literally until this March, everything was entirely pro bono.
Right.
Um, and that was a COVID thing.
Yeah.
We just wanted to be there and do a really good job. The fact we're still here in 2025 is kind of crazy, and it's their testament to our relationships with some bigger businesses who like what we're doing, and they help us keep the lights on, I guess. And in
Mm.
return, they meet lots of cool businesses. So shout out to Investec Bank, for example. They've been with us from day one. But the focus for me is really staying within the business and working on scaling our impact for small businesses.
Yeah.
So as of this March, we have refreshed our offering a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to create a slight barrier to entry for our membership, so the CEOs and founders that sign up for advice, because we think paying a little something now is more appropriate for the time.
Yes.
And it helps us keep the lights on, and it ensures that only people who really want to be there come and sign up to Altogether.
Yeah.
So for £20 to £30 a month, CEOs now have access to our advisors, and every quarter they get a credit, and they can come and say, hey, this quarter's challenge is this. And we'll
Mm-hmm.
say, great, meet so and so. So that's where we're going in this direction, and we remain a non-profit entirely.
Yeah.
And we've kept our fees a fraction of any competitors.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that reiterates our commitment to really supporting small business in the UK.
Yeah. I imagine it's probably difficult to get all this advice anywhere else, really, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's the USP of Altogether is, an hour with people that tend to sign up as our volunteer advisors is, as you say, inaccessible or unaffordable
Mm.
for many small businesses, whereas a membership to Altogether, you can access these people 4 times a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. Have you ever been oversubscribed? Have you ever had to turn people away because you just had too many applications?
No, we really, really try not to do that. And we're lucky to have some advisors that go above and beyond for us. So we can
Mm.
always, drop someone a message and say, hey, fancy doing an extra connection this month, for example. And hopefully, as we scale, so will the number of advisors that we have on board.
Yeah.
So the impact in theory should keep up.
Yeah. Now, this podcast, as you know, is about networking, and it sounds like you've got
It
a
is.
fantastic network there
That's what we do, yeah.
that small businesses can access. How do you have to persuade people to be part of the network, or is it really easy?
We do. We do have to persuade people. And I think that originally is down to almost it being too good to be true.
Mm.
And I think when something's free, as it was, people can maybe not believe it almost, or
Yeah.
think there must be a catch somewhere. So it was a lot of kind of outreach and communicating that no, this really is what it is.
Yeah.
And now at this point, when we're more of a kind of subscription membership service, again, it's about encouraging CEOs and founders that it's going to be worth the spend for their small business,
Yeah.
and that the value is really quite significant.
Yeah.
But our events tend to help with that. Whenever we do an event, people really, really understand the buzziness that comes from this community.
Yeah. So tell me about your events and how they work.
So our events, we do them at least a couple of times a year, our big in-person events.
Mm-hmm.
And they are, again, designed to really, really boost the learning of small business CEOs and founders. So we'll tend to get a keynote speaker. We've had all kinds of big names before, for example, Richard Harpin, who built HomeServe,
Mm-hmm.
Sharon White from John Lewis and others, for example. And they will open up a conversation on a particular topic. So the most recent one that we did at the beginning of March was on fundraising for small businesses.
Hmm.
So we had a panel there, all great speakers, all people with different takes on fundraising. And they'll have a big conversation together. We'll go out to the audience for some questions, and then we'll have a really chilled out couple of hours afterwards where people can have a drink and a chat with each other and catch up. We don't like to be too uptight, I guess, with anything like
Hmm.
that. We don't want it to feel too networky.
And so
With that,
how many people could come to those events?
we average about 100,
Yeah.
and that's a mixture of volunteer advisors, our CEO, founders, and other members, and then a couple of professional services as well might turn up if it's relevant. So we had a few professional investors come to the last event as they were really relevant.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you go out to any kind of networking events yourself to spread the word about what you're doing?
We do. We love to collaborate with other communities, and other organizations that have their own networking and cross collaborate, I guess. So
Yeah.
we might lend a speaker, or we might shout about their events to our group, because again, what has to come first for us is growth for these small businesses.
Yeah.
So any opportunity for them to benefit, we want them to know about it, and we try and be really unselfish in that, because ultimately, as the name suggests, Altogether is very much about utilizing your network to grow your business.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you go to networking events, what kind of reaction do you get from people when you explain what it is you're doing?
People are generally super positive. I mean, they often haven't heard of an organization that runs quite like ours for businesses, because there are a lot of other networking organizations for CEOs and founders. But I think ours, well, it has two USPs. One is it's not for profit,
Yeah.
and the other is our volunteer advisors, the caliber of those people. So again, it can be difficult to convince people that we really are doing that, and the event really is free.
Yeah, you mentioned the caliber of your advisors there. Just can you name drop a few people that are on your advisory board there?
Yes, absolutely. So we have Greg Jackson, for example, who founded Octopus Energy.
Yeah.
We have the exited founder of Design My Night on the tech side, or ratedpeople.com. Celia, we have her. We've got multiple food and drink or consumer business founders and CEOs. So Giles Brook, he's done Vita Coco, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Who else do we have? We've got Neds from the likes of Superdry, Vivo Barefoot, loads of them, all across the board, all different industries.
Yeah. So a small business from pretty much any industry can come to you, and there will be somebody you can match them up with.
Absolutely. And even if the industry fit isn't perfect, as we said earlier, there's always, common challenges that a CEO or founder will go through.
Yeah.
And we can usually be pretty sector agnostic in terms of matches, because all of our volunteer advisors will likely hear a problem and go, yeah, we had something similar, I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have an absolutely amazing network there that small businesses can take advantage of. So if people are looking to work with you either as advisors or as people who are needing advice, what is the best place for them to get hold of you?
We would love to hear from anybody growing a small business or that has done that in the past and wants to give back. So the best way to find us is our website, which is www.alltogether.company. And that's altogether spelled ALLTOGETHER. I'm dyslexic, so I really hope that went well.
I think it was right.
We can check. Or you can drop us an email and we will always make time. So that email would just be support@alltogether.company.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. And I'm sure this will have been a really useful conversation for small business owners to have heard. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Small Business Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, Please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.